So welcome again for another episode of Project Cancer. It's April the 19th at the moment, 2024, and I'll give you a quick update before I introduce my guest, Mark. The book launch. Many of you will know that my wife and I have written a new book about my life, the difficulties I've had. There's a couple of solid chapters, or three chapters actually, about the cancer and my journey and how I've coped with it, which may be of interest to others. We've sold about 250 copies so far, and I've done a number of podcasts about it. In terms of my health, as you know from previous podcasts, recently the scans were very good. The bone's regrowing in the hip. So we're having a really busy 3 months with the launch. And then next week, we're off to the Rockies to hike in the US Rockies for about 5 weeks. And I will update, of course, from the US when I'm over there. But anyway, today isn't about me at all. It's about Mark. So Mark, I was introduced to not many weeks ago, a few months, perhaps a couple of months ago. Never met physically, based, as you'll hear, in Ireland, through a mutual friend. And we'll talk about his background and his cancer journey, which is relatively short so far. And with a bit of luck, he's now in full remission, but he'll talk about that in a minute. So, Mark, can you just give us just a couple of minutes about your background?
Yeah, Peter, thanks for having me on. The funny thing was that Peter and I realized after we got connected by one of our mutual friends, we got online and realized we've met before. And we still haven't worked out where from. We think that we were on a panel together or some sort of COVID webinar. Yes, my background is born in Belfast. I would say my sort of adult years though were in Canada and Silicon Valley, but moved back to Belfast from California because I was missing the sunshine about 8 years ago. And ultimately I've been a 5 times founder from a startup perspective, and 3 times VC. So my journey's basically been start a company, grow it, scale it through acquisition, and then become a VC for a while, get bored, and then go back to solving another problem in the world.
Every single one of your entrepreneurial journeys have been successful, have they?
No, I've got one. I've got one in the middle, Peter, that was called Brain Park. That was I can't say it was a horrible failure, but it was basically it was Slack about 7 years before its time. So I mean, the name's fantastic. I still love it, Brain Park. The idea of like having the shared knowledge across your company, but I would say one of the main reason it failed was timing. I failed to ask the question: is there a line item in the budget of a corporation for collaboration software? At that time, it was no. I was going in to sell this thing of going, imagine you could communicate with all of your employees. It's all knowledge based. It's searchable. You can find it's always there rather than emails and just go back and forth. And folks go, well, why would we want that? Because I've got email. It works great. I can search my Gmail. I'm going, oh God. So it was it was a fantastic piece of software. The team was awesome. But yeah, that one that one failed. So yes, I've got my scars as well as the upside.
But you're back, obviously living in Belfast or in Dublin. Are you living?
I'm in Belfast. Yeah.
Belfast,
yeah. I'll make you all very jealous right now. But I mean, if you look outside, you see the ocean.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
So I live right 10 minutes outside of Belfast. But right on the water.
Yeah. So this isn't about investing and angel investing. I've done entrepreneurship. I did 80 odd podcasts about that. So let's just talk about what's happened in the last, this year and the end of last year. What actually went wrong with your health that started to worry you?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been pretty healthy my whole life, Peter. So I've been ultra marathon runner, ultra mountain biking, done everything around sort of adventure sports and all of that. So keep yourself fit and healthy. been boxing the last couple of years and stuff as well. So I've been obsessed about that, about my fitness and my health. My diet's good, I've got all of that. And I've never had any health scare of any form my whole life. So in some ways, I've probably felt somewhat invincible.
Yeah.
And when I put my hand to something, I tend to go all out. Like when I started ultra marathoning, I mean, I didn't do it just for the fun. I wanted to win. So like I won the amateur series for California. I did 14 ultra marathons in 1 year. I mean, when I do something, I get absolutely obsessed. Um, so and when it came to September, I was with my partner Louise, and we were with a family apartment in Spain, and we were there in middle of September. I think we were playing a game of Yahtzee on the balcony, having a bit of fun. And I just reached up to, I think it was, we're having a beer or something. I reached up and just like this, and I felt this lump in my neck. And so I shaved regularly, and I was going like, oh God, what's this? And I'd never felt that before. It was like, so when I started to feel it, it was good. And then over a couple of days, it got bigger, and so it basically emerged mid September. And at that time, well, I've got private healthcare with Aviva. Went online, got an instant video call with a doctor. They had a look and said, "Well, we can't tell from video," but they got me straight into the system. Said, "As soon as you come home from Spain, we'll have a meeting with a specialist." So I did that. Um, but when I first felt it, um, I did go into a little bit of a spiral. I would say second day we went to the Alhambra on this long drive, and but in my headspace wasn't good. So normally I'm extremely busy and focused, but if I have any downtime, I typically will be thinking of ideas, or I mean, I'm normally naturally creative, but this went into worry, which I'm not used to at all.
Mm.
Um, when I got home, went to the doctor, he felt around and said, "Oh, this looks like just a cyst. You shouldn't be worried about it." Got a then about a week later, they took me in and they drained the cyst with a syringe. Did a And they basically sent that off for testing as well.
So that was it was a liquid that came out of it, was it? A sort of yellowish liquid or something, the sort of thing you
Yeah,
yeah, not
yeah,
blood or anything. Yeah, okay.
correct. Yeah, so they did that, and they did an ultrasound as well at the time, and they confirmed, yes, just a cyst. Sent away the fluid, and I got a call about a week later saying the results came back benign. You're fine. The issue was in that period of time, the cyst had grown back, has filled up again
In how long? In 2, 3 days?
in like a week.
A week?
Oh yeah, within a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I told the doctor, I said, "That's fine, but the cyst is growing again." He said, and then at that point there's a pause. He went, "Okay, well that's not normal."
Yeah.
So so that was the part of going, okay, my my worries are valid in some way. Um, so went back and met the doc again. His name's Miles Black. He's a fantastic guy. In the Ulster Independent Clinic, and he said, "Do you?" I said at that point, he said, "Do you care if you have a scar on your neck? About 4 or 5 inches." And I go, "Dude, I don't care at all." He said, "Well, then I'll cut it out. We'll get rid of it. Better out than in, and I'll send it off for a biopsy to be sure to be sure." So went for the operation mid-December. I'm not sure if you can see here, but
Oh yes, I
it's
can. How
a
long
nice.
is it? About 3 inches long, 7 centimeters or so.
It,
Yeah,
it is. It
yeah,
is. It is
yeah,
today. It was maybe a little bit bigger at the time,
yeah.
but it's healing nicely, and with a little bit of age, I've got a couple of creases here, so you don't notice it quite as much.
Yeah.
um, and I've been putting on these healing creams and stuff, so all good. So that was sent off, and he said, "Look, I'll see you in January." mid-January, but if there's anything happens, I'll give you a call. So had Christmas, spent time with family, and then Louise and I went and headed off to skiing over New Year's. And on the 3rd of January, Louise was on a lesson. I'm a fanatical skier. She was a first timer, so it was the afternoon. She's on a lesson, and the weather was a little bit spotty. So I sat down and had a nice. We were sitting in a little outdoor patio, having a hot wine, and my phone rang. Unknown, like or unknown caller or whatever it was, and I picked it up, which I rarely do when I don't know the number. And he said, "Hi, it's Mr. Black, your consultant. I've got the results, Mark, and I need to tell you that we found a 3.5 centimeter cancerous node attached to the cyst, and it has cancer."
That was 3.5 centimeters. So the cyst was even bigger, was it, than that?
Yeah, so I should say this is reduced since the surgery.
This sort of size, yeah. So it's quite a big chunk together. And the node itself was solid material, was it, as far as you know? Or
as far as I know, he said it's like about the size of a large grape.
Yeah.
And I at the time I said I was shocked, obviously. I said, well, is it bad? And he said, he's quite a funny guy. I actually really like him. And he said, well, Mark, it's cancer. If I don't treat it, it'll kill you. And so I went, right, fair enough. He said, so when you get back, let's get in. I'll see you right away. Yeah, he said, but let's get this happening right away. So within, I think it was like the end of that week, got back, met him, sat down in the Ulster Independent Clinic again, and he said, Mark, I think his opening line was, Mark, you're going to get to know me very well. He said, you have cancer. It's a 5-year journey, at least. So you're going to get used to this. I said, but don't worry about it. I'm gonna help you fix the problem. I've got all the influence locally, and I'll roll out all the big guns and make this happen. And fair deal to him, he did. It was within like 2 days. I had like an MRI scan and so on. So it just ran really quickly. He said, we'll find this node. He said, but what we need to do is find the primary source.
Exactly.
Because it was the type of cancer he said that it is. He said it's as far as we know, this is metastatic in the sense it has moved, but it probably hasn't moved too far from the source. He said, so I'm going to I'm going to bring in the surgery as well. I want to do a biopsy in your back of your tongue, thorax, and so on. I want to take some biopsies and send that away. And while I'm in there, I'm going to remove your tonsils. And it was very sort of a very passive thing that he said on the way through. And so that happened. So I think there was about a 3-week period, when that was all happening.
Yeah.
My research since I found out at the beginning of January basically led me to fasting. So I went on a green juice fast for about 20 days.
You must have lost some weight then. You lost a lot of weight then, did you?
Yeah, surprisingly didn't lose. I did probably. I think I lost about 5 or 6 kilos or something. So enough. Yeah. And then they removed my tonsils, did the thing, and when I came out of that, instead of going back onto food, it was the most painful thing I've ever had in my life. It was brutal. Like I could, if there was any salt or anything acid, it would just, oh my god. So I basically then went on to a 10-day water fast. I gave up the thought of eating and did that. So 20 days on juice, 10 days on water. And I mean, if you do the research, basically, cancer needs for cancer to grow, it needs to be fed.
Mm.
And so I basically starved my body,
Yeah, yeah.
and I thought, okay, well, this could get rid of it.
Mm.
Um, I'm I'm also a person of faith, and I have lots of. I'm not a religious person at all.
Mm.
But I've got lots of friends who are spiritual and so on. So I've
Mm.
got all these people thinking about me, praying for me. I'm taking it into my own hands and doing everything you could possibly do from a dietary perspective.
Mm.
So, so after I got all this done, then they give me an MRI scan, a CT scan, a PET scan, blood works, did everything under the sun, and they found nothing. And so I go to those results and I'm going, awesome, this is the best thing ever. I'm healed,
Mm.
and so then the doctor said, so as a result of all of this and not finding anything, we're going to give you we're going to recommend that you get radiotherapy. And that was the shock. I'm going like, well, what do you mean? I mean, like, 'cause you can't see anything. I'm healed. I've obviously done all the right stuff. And he said, well, he said there's a primary bed somewhere. He said what you've got, Mark, is called a CUP, cancer of an unknown primary.
Did you
He said
Google that?
so.
'Cause I have Googled that, and it doesn't look very good, does it? If you
Oh,
Google
oh, it's horrible. I
it.
did. I genuinely hadn't Googled much before it, but when they gave me the details of this is, I guess, P16 positive CUP, and I Googled that, and it said, I think it came up and said you have an 11% chance of of surviving, and
For
like
1 year, for 1 year, that is a
for
thing.
1 year,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
I was, yeah, like I was, oh my God, this is awful. So that terrified me. Um, I think it was not long after that that you and I then chatted,
Yeah.
and I think I was saying, okay, I think I'm going to get radiotherapy, blah blah blah. And so what I did is I detailed all of this into like a short novel, and I cut and pasted it and sent it to a bunch of friends on WhatsApp. Um, like people who are close to me know me, so that they said, okay, here's what's really going on with Mark,
Mm.
and I think it was a little bit of shock and awe for some of my friends. But one of them, my one of my really close friends, Tad Munnings in Canada, he came back to me right away. I think it was the same evening, and just said, "Oh, Mark," he said, uh, "I I I would hate to think, or I would hate that you have to go through radiotherapy because it's awful." So he
Mm.
had, and he reminded me of a mutual friend, Brian Hunt, in Canada, whose wife had been diagnosed with a terminal cancer that was inoperable within Canada, and he had gone and done a bunch of research into other places in the world that could have alternative therapies, and he found this place in Berghausen in Bavaria. And so I ended up talking to, I think on email the next day with Brian, and then we had a bit of a call. He told me everything he'd gone through and the surgery there, or the therapy that they'd done, extended his wife's life by about 5 years. When I think she had been given a few months to live at that point, so it
What's
was
the name of
amazing.
what's the name of the clinic? Because I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, it's in German.
No, it would,
Uh,
well, tell me later. Don't worry.
I'll tell you
And then,
later, or
and
we can
then
put it in.
I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, if you Google, cancer clinic Berghausen, that's the
Yeah.
number one on the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forget the German name for it. Uh, and uh, so Brian connected me then immediately to the doctor in Dr. Eigner in Germany, and I had a call with him, at a Zoom call the following day, and he basically this was my second opinion, and he said to me, he said, Mark, he said, you do not get radiotherapy in your neck, because he said, and he started naming off stories of like a trumpet player and different people he had, like, throughout his life that he had treated. Um, because he said he said you'll hear that you get a dry mouth. He said, but maybe things that you don't know is that if you get radiotherapy in an area, it can actually, create or cause further cancer. And if you get radiotherapy in your neck and it causes further cancer, you can't get the radiotherapy again. Um, and normal chemo will not work. So you're stuffed. I then, our mutual friend, John Bradford, connected me with another chap that I had a conversation with, who who basically had gone through the radiotherapy in this. And when I listened to what he had gone through, and he he wasn't able to, no ability to process proteins, no saliva, and then talked to others, and it was like they had some loss of speech, teeth issues, and I'm going, half my life is public speaking. I'm going like, this be
Just to
awful.
interrupt, John Diamond, who was Nigella Lawson's husband, first husband, actually, I read his book, similar story, really. Had some,
Mhm.
he had the tumor was in his neck, had radiotherapy, as you say, he couldn't really speak. He was a journalist and presenter. He couldn't taste, all the various things you've said. So I fully understand why you'd wanted to avoid that. So what is the clinic in Germany doing? What did they offer you? What have you endured? So
Yep. So, long story cut short, then I flew to Germany the next day. So I just cancelled everything on my calendar. Um, and Louise came with me, and they said, look, it'll be 1 or 2 cycles of this, you know, localized sort of like chemotherapy. So flew over, didn't really know what was going to happen. Arrive in this little place in Berghausen. The cost was per cycle, I believe it was like 17,500 euros.
mm.
So it was expensive, but I had the money, thankfully.
So it didn't
And
come up. Your private healthcare didn't do it. Aviva wouldn't pay for it, presumably. No.
no, I mean that this is another startup waiting to happen. I mean, as a startup guy, Peter, it
Yes.
drove me bonkers to think, because I talked to other doctors and they said, well, we don't, we've never heard of it, you
Yeah.
know, and all the rest of it. So, and we called Aviva, my broker called Aviva to say, look, this is probably going to
Yeah.
be cheaper and more effective for Mark if you
Yeah.
support him. And they said no. So Aviva were useless with it. Everything.
Mm.
um, I've got two different life insurance policies, one for work, one for personal. And they only pay out and help and support if you're given a specific date on when you're going to die, basically. So absolutely, I've been paying a fortune for years on all these different insurances and everything, and nothing helped. And so yeah, it was one of those things. Okay, this will. I just got to take the hit financially,
Yeah.
and which we all would. I mean, or
We
find
can,
the
if you
money
can
from
afford it,
friends.
we all would. Exactly. If we
Yeah,
can afford it, we all would.
totally. So got there, and then they prepped me, and ultimately how this works and how it's different is it's like they put they basically put a catheter in the groin. So basically on my right leg, upper right leg, um, they they put me under for this. So I
Yeah.
had general anesthetic. Um, and one of the things that they came around with, they came around with a cold flow cap,
Right.
which is like a rugby hat,
Mm.
which has this ice cold water that flows through it and gives you like instant brain freeze. It's like eating 10 ice creams at once. And it was absolutely brutal. And thankfully, I only had to endure it for about 15 or 20 minutes before the general anesthetic
Oh,
had in and
dear.
out. But they came around and said, Mark, this will help you to keep your hair. And I
Yeah.
laughed. I was thinking, oh, you're taking the piss. And so they said, no, you still have a little bit. So I wore this. They put me out, and so the catheter basically ran a tube up basically up to my neck area here. So the area, so they said the unknown primary. So this is the consistent piece between Germany and the local doctor said this particular cancer it's unlikely that it has moved very far. So their belief is that it's all in this area. So they said so the radiotherapy is going to treat this area. So the chemo did the same thing, was blasted. kill everything around on the inside here. Um, but Dr. Agner said to me, he said the difference in it says, Mark, we'll do it, we'll treat it, and you'll have no long-term side effects.
Yeah.
Which was for me the big positive when I'd heard that there's a very high percentage of people that commit suicide on the other side of radiotherapy in the neck. I just thought, I don't know if my mental health could actually cope with something like this to have an extended half-life.
Yeah.
What they do is the whole I was out for about 4 hours. The operation itself was about an hour and a half, but the chemoblast is something around 5 to 7 minutes. But it's it's a 10 or 20 times more intense than normal chemotherapy.
And it's circulating in your bloodstream, or is it actually being absorbed into all the tissue as well?
So they blast this area, but they also have a second pipe that goes up into the bloodstream, and they do this basically blood transfusing or blood washing. Basically, they were circulating my blood through a washing machine, and
dialysis of some
yeah,
point.
and they're basically cleaning out all the toxins. So because if you get that level of intensity of chemotherapy, you'd be extraordinary. I mean, the body can't handle it. You'd be extraordinarily sick.
Yeah.
And so I came out. So I got that done. Came out of it. The day afterwards, I felt fine. A wee bit sore. A wee bit groggy, but other than that, I was fine. And I was thinking, oh, this is a piece of piss. This is easy. But what I did, so I was thinking, it's like you go for surgery and every day afterwards you get better. What I didn't know is this would work like a bell curve. It got progressively worse. So day two, Peter, day two, I was a mess. A dear help Louise, who was sharing a hospital bed room with me. I was all over the place, and they came and they said to me, Mark, we're going to do a second cycle, so we're going to keep you around here for another 10 or 12 days. And I was just I swole up like an Oompa Loompa. I lost the feeling on the right side of my face. So my tongue, it felt like I was taking a stroke. So I panicked.
So your eyes, you wouldn't have the control over muscles and things.
Yeah, it was really, really bizarre. Yeah. But the doctor said, look, this is short term, temporary. This will all come back. And sure enough, within 10 days, the swelling had come down and got the feeling back in my tongue. And then I went into the second cycle. I took a break in between and went to Salzburg and rented an Airbnb, and rather than staying in a hospital room, but went back in. My leg where the catheter and so on was black and blue. That was really painful. But then I went into for the second cycle and thought, oh yeah, I've got this. I know what I'm doing. I'll get it. It'll be fine the next day. Then it'll get worse. Blah blah blah. So what I didn't think about was the compounding effect that there's still chemo in my body, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I got the second cycle, and Peter, the next from after, I was a mess. And I was for about 2 weeks. I was when we were the funny thing was when we were on our flight, we were sitting in the lounge at the airport in Munich, and Louis said to me, he said, you should probably go and check yourself out in the mirror. So I went to the lounge, and Peter, you should have seen, like, literally right down the middle. It looked like I had gone to Spain, fallen asleep for 2 weeks in the sunshine. I was beetroot red, swollen up. I had a streaming eye of so it was burning and so on. So I had all of this. So flew back and I stayed. It was a place in Dublin, and I basically hid away there for a week. So I didn't go back to work. Didn't see anyone. I wasn't ready to socialize again, and I wasn't in a great headspace either. So stayed away, but then got back 2 weeks ago now, and swelling. Well, you can see swelling's gone. There's maybe a little bit of redness here. No pain. Everything else is gone. The eyes are gone, and so I would say I'm probably back to 90%. Went back to boxing training over the last couple of weeks. I've been working again, and The only noticeable effect that I have is I'm getting to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I'm a little bit more tired than I normally am. I'm normally quite hyperactive and always on the go, so I'm a bit more tired, but no side effects, and like I feel like the luckiest man alive, um, to have gone through this and not have all the side effects of the radiotherapy. So I met on Monday. Well, actually, when I got back, the date had been set for radiotherapy with the oncologist here. I hadn't cancelled anything, so I
Yeah.
actually went to that. But I brought my paperwork and I said I actually circumvented some of this and went and got this done. And they said, so the oncologist locally said, well, that's an unproven thing. And I said,
Yeah.
well, it's not. It's been done for 40 years in Germany, and there's a great amount of success. And said, well, if it was that great, we'd be doing it in Northern Ireland. I'm thinking, yeah, the NHS doesn't move that quick.
Yeah.
As much as I'm thankful for the NHS and everything it's done for me, and so they were a bit skeptical. So, but then I met on Monday of this week with the local consultants. Um, they had all the paperwork. I went and met with them. They had done their research and said, "Look, Mark, we hadn't heard of this clinic, but it all makes sense."
Right.
You, so it was basically a well done you on
Yeah.
taking the bull by
Fine.
the horns and finding this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they said so as as far as we're aware, um, there's you're now in remission and this is gone, and we'll do checks every 6 weeks. We'll do it in is it called is an endoscopy? Is that what's it called endoscopy when they put
That,
the
yeah. That's the
they
one that
put it
goes up and round. Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
up the nose and down,
Yeah.
which is well, I spread it's awful. The taste of all stuff, but so they do that. Did my blood work this week, and they said we'll set you up for another MRI just to see if anything else is there, and we'll do these checks. So it'll be every 6 weeks for the next 2 years. So that's what I'm on. I'm on the
So
cycle now.
you'll have an MRI probably every 6 weeks for the next 2 years.
Sorry, they'll do I think the MRIs a couple of times a year, but they'll do all the blood works, markers, all the other checks every 6 weeks. So short, so get that done. So that's so at the moment I'm living and believing that I'm in
Yeah.
good shape, that I've got a long life ahead of me. Um, Feeling fortunate and thankfully I mean, when I first heard about going in to get the checks, I was thinking, oh, that's going to be a pain. But now I'm actually going, who doesn't want to get that? I mean, I'm in my early 50s and I'm thinking, well, that's fantastic because, I mean, anything goes wrong, they're going to find it. And so I've got that. And then in my back pocket, Peter, this is like typical Irish to be sure, to be sure, to be sure. Um, I had done research on a thing called DCT, dendritic cell therapy. Not sure if you have done your research on this as well,
No,
but
I think we mentioned before. Look, but no, I haven't. No, no.
so there's a so I did my when I was doing research, this showed up and it was I believe it was discovered about 6 years ago, and the doctor uh who basically discovered this or pioneered this path won the Nobel Health Prize. I believe he was based in Thailand, so it was Thailand basically has a lot of cancer, so it's one of discovered as one of the sort of pioneering areas to go. And I think because it's also a little bit cheaper, a lot of people will go to Thailand to get this type of work done. Um, but today they'll do it in Marbella and in London. And what they do is they remove about 50 milliliters of blood. They take that to the lab, extract the dendritic cells. Um, I'm not sure how they treat these cells, but they turn them into like immunology soldiers, and then over a 2 week period they multiply that into the millions. They take that, you go back after 2 weeks, and they re-inject you
Yeah.
with the cells, and then those cells basically then run through your entire body, and work as basically anti-cancer warriors. It's
Yeah.
very proactive for about a 9 month period.
Okay.
So to eradicate any form of cancer in your body.
So what you're saying is hypercharging your immune system, so it's
Correct.
somehow more capable of finding cancerous cells, which clearly it doesn't find. Otherwise, nobody would get cancer if our immune systems could get to do it. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So
So
you've chosen to do that, have you?
I had the interview this week with them, and certain blood types, and to see if you're in. They said to me, Mark, you're a perfect candidate for this. So because it's the unknown primary, I still have a little niggling piece. What if it
Okay.
wasn't in the neck? You
Yeah.
know. Um, so I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a couple of months or so, and then go get that.
Is that
Um,
also NHS private, or how's that done?
no, I I think I remember it's about 18 or 19,000, and it's be me paying again. So yeah, this cancer thing's an expensive sport. Um, if I want to do what seems the smartest thing,
Yeah.
um, it's yeah, there's the coverages are not there,
Yeah.
and so I'll be saving my pennies or spending my savings to go get it done.
Yeah.
But it's very non-invasive, and the other thing is that it has a very proactive 9 months running through your system. But for the rest of my life, it works like any other, injection. Basically, it more or less makes you immune to that to cancer.
So yeah, I wonder how it selects which the cancer cells are, because the big issue, of course, with chemotherapy, which is picking is attacking obviously cancer cells, but many other cells as well. I know
Yep.
immunotherapy doesn't, but how does it specifically know, particularly as they don't know what the primary is? How does it know which the cells are that it should kill off? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't. This is where the pioneer went around this dendritic cell thing about how it works. I mean, that I've done enough research and everything I've read on it. It's fascinating, but don't ask me to regurgitate it, Peter.
And
It's way above my head.
I'll put a link in the show notes, and anybody who's listening or watching this can work it out. So we ought to finish now because we've had about half an hour. Just so, how have your family, friends, how have you communicated with them? How have they taken it?
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I got a phone call from one of my friend's wives. It was a random call that I got, and when I my friend had found that when I told him reasonably early and when I found this out, and she had told me, said, Mark, are you aware that I have gone through that she had breast cancer? And I went, I hadn't a clue. She said,
Yeah.
I didn't really tell too many people. And she said, through this journey, you'll make friends and you'll lose friends.
Okay.
It was interesting. So um, it was fascinating to discover how many people, basically really lent into me, and how
Yeah.
many people, and then how many people backed off. And the backing off was strange for me because I'm thinking I had a few friends who I would associate as very close who just did not communicate at all. So I think my assumption and part of that is that they don't know how to communicate, and it
Yeah.
scares them.
Exactly.
It either scares them about their own lives, or it scares them to not know how to communicate about it. And I had the other side where then I had, good friends, but they really lent in and would be sending me like a WhatsApp every day, going checking
Yeah.
in, all good. So I did have it. There were a few moments where it was a bit stressful, where I went offline maybe for 3 or 4 days once in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and came around and turned on my phone to about 100 WhatsApp messages. And I was going like, and like it was almost too much to respond to everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so there was a little bit of management, and so I tapered it down a little bit. But what I did do is that I would take a little bit of time, type something up on my iPad, and then cut paste and send it. So that's how I managed a lot of it. Was a much more of a generic update to people. Um, so I can't say I lost friends, but it was definitely it definitely tested a few things and has made me
Yeah, I mean,
question.
those people, once they realise you're healthy and fine, may come back. But of
Probably be
course,
back.
the relationship you're going to have with them is going to be slightly marred by the way they
Yeah,
reacted, isn't it? So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So my mom, who is still alive and very well, was fantastic through it, very supportive. Um, and so no, my family generally have been
Mm,
great. Um, Louise and I have been together for about a year and a half, just over a year and a half, and she's a fitness trainer. She came with me thinking that we're going away for a week to Germany to get this done. And we're away we ultimately disappeared for 5 weeks. So, um, and in that 5 week period, it was like, you know, you're living in a hospital room,
yeah.
she's like emptying my bedpan and like, dear helper. And I'm a mess. So by the end of that, we realized, hey, we should just move in
Married or
together.
something. Exactly.
So we came home and moved in together, and
Yes.
and there's a wake up call for me to go. There's a whole bunch of noise in my life and things that I was doing, going like, I don't need to do that. And
Yes.
so I've eradicated a lot. I've massively reduced stress from my life, and essentially because I know that is a contributor. Um, because I'm healthy, I'm fit, I have a good diet, I don't smoke, I've got all of that stuff, and so I would say that probably the number one contributor to something in my life is probably stress. I live in a high stress environment as an entrepreneur, and I've thrived in it. As I said earlier, I push my body to the limits with in sports and in business. But I'm gonna pull back a little bit. Um, and I I sit on a couple of boards. I'm chairman of a couple of companies, like sort of like yourself as well, Peter. And
Mm,
that type of work is awesome because you've somebody else who's the CEO and probably takes it to bed every night, where
mm.
I don't have to. I can advise and support and bring the wisdom of years that I've got and the networks and everything together. But I don't have. Rarely do I fall asleep thinking about it. You know,
Yeah, no, I've often likened that to being a grandparent, not that I am, where
totally.
the child is the startup is the grandchild, the child is the entrepreneur, and you're sitting above it and just pop in and out. Obviously, you get called in when there's a crisis, a funding crisis, and startup.
Yeah, yeah.
The child is ill in the case of a grandfather. But I take that. So the actual stress involved in being on the board of a company which is non-executive, a chair or a non-executive director, is so much less stressful.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think, as my life evolves, I'm still CEO of Responsible Today, and believe in everything we're doing, and so pushing all of that forward. But thankfully, I've got an amazing team who really share the load. So
Yeah.
so I'm thankful. So I've come through this journey. It's only been what four? I mean, well, since September actually. So if you add that in, them 6 or 7 months into a journey here, and it's been reasonably traumatic throughout. But I'm like sitting here today. I'm happy. I'm
Mm.
thankful. I'm energetic, and as I say, I'm enjoying work, and I'm enjoying the fitness again. And and this is the first time I've got the opportunity to actually properly tell the story.
Good.
So
Well,
thank you for that, Peter.
it'll be on the YouTube, so you can spread it around your friends if you wish to, and obviously
Yeah,
anybody anywhere can watch it. No, it's great. I mean, it's great. We've similar characters, really. We're both energetic. We're passionate about things, helping others, etc. We both have done quite a lot of investigation, research. The big difference in you and I is I've got something which will never go into remission. You've got something that, in principle, probably doesn't exist any longer, but
yeah,
you've still got that sort of cloud possibly hanging over you, thinking, "Oh, maybe it does. Maybe it's hidden itself." I
yeah.
don't. And that's a really different feeling between us. But as long as we get on with our lives, which we clearly are, we embrace it fully. I mean, I'm 14 years older than you, so I've got, I'm going to have less time, whatever. So. Excellent. We better finish there. We've run over the half hour or so. So, listeners and viewers, I hope you've really enjoyed and learnt from Mark. And thank you very much indeed. And see you again soon.